Well, I've noticed something in my own family that perhaps you guys have observed in your families as well. And so I looked it up on the internet and found a whole bunch of really interesting information about toxic positivity. And what I noticed in my own family was two things really. Number one, I've noticed that people like my mother are really happy to talk to me when things are going bad for me. And they're not so happy to talk to me when things are going good. They're actually really withdrawn. But if something bad happens, they are so ready to be there and talk about it and wallow in the mud, and it's uh it's been like that for a really long time. And what I've determined now is that this is some dysfunctional insanity. And it's extremely dangerous to participate in that. And so I'm learning more and more that it's very critical to not speak to these people, because if something is going really good, they're not really that happy for me. And then if things are going bad, the worst thing I can possibly do is share that with them, because they're going to be so happy that things are going so bad for me. It's crazy. What I've also noticed uh, is that when things have gone south in my life, and I've tried to have kind of, whatever, conversations with some people in my family about it, and I'm out loud in real time trying to verbalize exactly what took place, mainly because it's a good exercise for me to do in order to gain a functional understanding of what's happening and then not repeat that same behavior pattern in the future. And I come from a broken family where my parents got divorced, and my great grandfather, one of my great grandfathers on my father's side of the family, committed suicide. Uh, my grandmother on my one of my grandmothers on my mother's side of the family disowned me when got divorced the first time, and really took a stand at that point where she was convinced that I was some kind of evil, dangerous bastard or something like that, based on some things that she was told by my ex wife, which is a person that she's never met before in her entire life. So that was that was interesting as well. But the point here is that what I've noticed with these people is that when I'm going through this out loud verbal exposition of exactly what's going on, and I'm trying to get people to participate in this exercise with me, so that I can get a little closer to having some type of functional forward movement and better understanding. I find that these people want to tell me that I'm like being negative, and they have this interesting way of denying reality and trying to put what appears on the surface to be some type of positive spin on everything. It's actually over time really surfaced over and over and over again at these key moments where I've been able to observe this pattern, and I found it to be very poisonous and frustrating. And so I do some Googling on the old Google and find that there's actually plenty of research published about this type of behavior, and it's referred to as toxic positivity. It's also referred to as this delusional denial of distress. And that, when I read that, that hit me right where it counted. And I said to myself, that's what we're dealing with here. It's this denial of distress behavior. And it's very well documented. It's also very dangerous to participate in that with people. It's much healthier to stand in reality and not be delusional and not try to make things that are just occurrences in reality that can be analyzed and dealt with effectively so they're not repeated over and over again. It's very dysfunctional to just deny that these things are real and I mean completely go off the deep end and say, like, oh, that's not happening. Ugh, ugh. Sorry for my yawns this late at night, but I want to get the stuff off of my chest. I find that it's been actually really, really helpful to look into this and read some of these things that other people have written about it. So there's some points here that I've written down that are kind of they're all interconnected in various ways and layers. And to take it from the top, I'll start with um, you know authenticity when communicating with people is key. And one of the things that's going to establish healthy relationships with your family and your friends, and I've been making a lot of these videos talking about interpersonal relationships with men and women. One of the things that's going to be foundational there is authenticity. And so part of that is people know when you're bullshitting. People know that. I've had two different stretches of many years in my life where I was involved in a sales career that was fairly successful and enabled me at one point in time to make hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars back when that actually was a lot of money. Like when making $100,000 was like kind of really worth something. And so that was great. And then at another time, much later, I was able to repeat that level of income with a job that required almost no effort and input. It was a very small amount of effort on the input side of the equation equaled a very significant income on the output side of the equation. And again, it was a completely dysfunctional relationship with a woman who was like really, really, really hot and really fucking dysfunctional that I allowed into my life that really put me into a place where I got off track for a long time. And I've repeated that behavior, I would say, half a dozen times. I I have done a lot of introspection about this, and it appears that I have a very strong, repeated pattern of building up momentum and getting to a certain level of income and status and financial security and freedom and uh, excess resources, and then I decide to align myself with a woman who's like super hot but fucking crazy. And I don't know, man. I guess I think I can save them all, but I love it. And and so now I would really like to avoid doing that again, as I'm sure you can imagine. I found that to be so expensive and unfruitful that I think here now, as I gain momentum in my life again and put significant amounts of money in the bank and have excess resources and am beginning to gain status once again and all of these things, I've got a lot to learn, and I've learned a lot, but I still have this pattern that is very self-destructive that I would like to avoid continuing. And so that's where most of this stuff comes from. Anyway, part of this is I'm looking at what in the hell is going on with my family, you know? And why is it that I have this self-destructive behavior pattern where I add these women into my life that completely just nuclear bomb what I have going on when I have so many good things going on and so much profitability. And that's a whole nother video. But one of the things that I find to be super dysfunctional within my own family, like I said, was this delusional, this denial of distress type of behavior. And I don't do that at all. I have identified that as being completely repulsive and disgusting. And so I go hard in the opposite direction of that, where I am very, especially now that I have identified all this self destructive behavior in my own life, where now I'm very, very self critical. And it's not like I hate myself or I think I don't, I'm not worth good things or whatever. I think now it's healthy to be self critical and to be very, very hard nosed when it comes to performing self destructive behaviors and taking a really good, hard, cold look at it. Okay, what behavior is going on here? Is it a self affirming behavior or is it a self destructive behavior? And let's just not do the self destructive bullshit anymore because that's not going to get us anywhere, right? And I suggest that everybody else does the same thing. I find that it your life will work out much, much better if you can take a good hard look at yourself and have some self-awareness and be self-critical and not sugarcoat what you're doing when you're doing things that are stupid and self-destructive. And then don't allow people to tell you that you're, you know, not doing these things that you are doing that are super stupid and self-destructive and are going to ruin your life, not improve your life. So, what I found to be pretty interesting about this in terms of the relationship interactions, there's some Gottman Institute. You would probably have heard of the Gottman Institute studies where they took couples, and you can read into the details of how they did this. I'm probably getting some of this wrong here, but the point still stands. They take couples and they basically like sequester these people for a significant amount of time, and they have all kinds of video cameras. It's kind of like a how they used to do these uh, like reality TV shows where they stick a bunch of people in a house and videotape them all the time. And then the TV show becomes the highlights of all the crazy shit that these people are doing inside this house with all the video cameras in it. Well, they did that with married couples and came up with a way of determining when these couples were having a positive interaction between one another and when they were having a negative interaction between one another. And then they counted all that up, and what they determined was that most of these things can be counted mathematically and then weighed and measured against each other, and that you're going to have these couples break up if they are in a certain ratio of negative interactions to positive interactions. And so what they found was that if you've got 5 positive to 1 negative in your ratio there, that your relationship is fucking doomed. You're not going to make it. It takes more than 5 positive interactions for every 1 negative interaction in order for your relationship to be maintained. Now, the other interesting thing, and I mean, that goes without saying, right? Like everybody's, I don't know how many thousands of different people on YouTube and everything have mentioned all this before. The Gottmans, which is this kind of weird ass old couple, will go on podcasts and talk about all this stuff and everything. And it appears to me that the that the dude is just, I mean, kind of not the type of dude that you would. I take all that back. What I was going to say is this guy appears to be kind of cucked, and he appears to not really be the kind of dude that you want to grow up to be. Okay, I mean, I'm just saying what everybody's thinking, right? When you see this guy and this woman who did these studies get together on podcasts, and she's doing most of the talking, and he's kind of taking a back seat to the whole thing, that's not the kind of marriage that you want to have. Okay, so don't sign up for that. You don't want to be with some woman who's going to run all over you. You don't want to be with some woman who's going to compete with you for airtime on the internet. You don't want any of that. Don't support that. Don't encourage that. Don't allow that. Don't feed that monster at all. Now, it appears that this guy is at a very, very low level of attractiveness, and for men that are in that category, you have to take what you can get. Even for men that are in a higher level of attractiveness category, we still operate on the principle that you take what you can get and you do the best with what you can have a crack at, right? And so it is what it is. I'm not hating on the guy necessarily. I'm just saying, like, I would be much more impressed if it appeared that this relationship between these two people wasn't one of these completely ridiculous quasi egalitarian type of things. I'm not saying that the lady's not smart and that they didn't do good work and that the study isn't valid or anything like that. I think they're cool. I think the work that they've done is great. I'm glad that they did this study on all these people and published all this information. I think it's great. But in addition to that, I also think that if you've got some doctor wife that has this really, really overinflated ego and really wants to, make her voice heard to the world, then that doesn't increase your credibility with me or with other men like me. Okay? It hurts your credibility. So when you're going out and telling people about how to have successful marriages, it's very important that you have a marriage that other people are going to observe and then want to replicate. And if you don't, homie, that's a bad look. And it doesn't increase your credibility, it decreases your credibility. Now, all that put aside, the other number on the other side of this positive to negative interaction ratio equation that's just as fascinating, if not more fascinating to me, is that if you have over 11, so 12 or more positive interactions to one negative interaction, the relationship is also doomed to fail. So I'll say that again. There's a sweet spot here. If you've got 5 positive to 1 negative, that's not enough. It's got to be more than 5. It's got to be 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Once you get to 11, you have the same problem. And why is that? Well, that's where this denial of distress behavior pattern comes in. And people aren't fucking stupid. They know you're full of shit. If you have too many, this is the whole nice guys finish last. This is what no one ever talks about this part of the study. They never ever discuss this. This is critical. This is, if you don't get this part of it, you might as well throw the whole thing out. Because if you only hear the part where they say you got to have more than 5 positive interactions to every 1 negative interaction, you'll just butter this chick's bread all the time, and she will leave your ass. Because the ceiling on that is 11 to 1. Once you go past 11 to 1 positive to negative interactions, she's going to bail on you. And you could say, well, another guy could leave too. Guys don't leave. We don't. We don't go through all the bullshit that we have to do in life to go searching out women and hunting down women and approaching women and supporting women and putting food in your mouth and putting time and energy into you and protecting you and educating you and doing all these things for you so that we can then leave you. We don't do that. So just stop. It's so gay to even deal with that. It's so old and lame. So anyway, yeah, your partner, your girlfriend, your wife, your husband, your boyfriend, whoever, is gonna know that they can't trust you because you're full of shit, because you're too nice, because nobody's that nice and nobody's that stupid. So once you get past 11 to 1, there's a lack of trust that creeps its way into your situation. And the person who's on the receiving end of all this false positivity, they know that they can't trust you because either you're placating them, which is actually pedestalizing them and hurting them. That's abuse. Pedestalizing people is abusing people. Don't do that. Don't pedestalize women. That's fucking ridiculous. And they won't trust you. They'll look down on you and they'll bail on you because they can do better. So either they're placating and enabling and pedestalizing and lying, right? That's all lying. Or they're too stupid to know what reality is. And in either case, you can't be trusted. You have to be able to trust somebody to help you make necessary corrections in life, to identify when you're doing something wrong, to actually be a qualified voice. And most of this is man to woman, so you got to be a qualified captain. If you're going to be the captain of the ship, and you're going to be the one guiding this vessel through the world and promising success, you can't be a fool. You can't be a liar. You can't pedestalize your passengers. Okay? You have to actually be legit. And once your ratio of positive and negative interactions goes above 11, you've put yourself in the category of false positivity, fakeness, denial of distress, delusion, and people won't trust you. Your women won't trust you. And so just be aware of that. Do what you will with that information, but there's some very basic physiological structure to this as well. So think of it like this: the actual physical, the physiological, not the psychological, but the physiological effects of denial of distress is that denial of distress requires work. It requires more work in the long term, right? Because you're still feeling the distress. Your central nervous system and your cognitive ability aren't turned off. So you're going to identify this stuff, even if it's just subconsciously, that's stressing you out. You're going to have this stress. And then if you deny it, you're spending energy to go through this denial instead of identifying the problem, analyzing, planning out some type of plan of action, some type of solution, and then executing that plan so that you solve the problem. It's very simple. You analyze, you plan, then you execute. And if you don't, if you just spend all this extra time and energy denying, well, you'll be less healthy. You're going to spend more work. There's physiological costs that go along with that, which is going to lower your physical health. Now you're spending calories and energy and time on denial, on delusion, on maintaining a false reality, which is impossible. You're just attempting to maintain a false reality. There's actually no such thing as false reality. Reality is reality. You can just have different levels of delusion that you try to hold on to because you're scared like a bitch. So don't do that, and don't do that, and then expect other people to trust you and follow your lead. That's extremely foolish. It's nonsensical. It's abusive to the people that you're trying to drag into your false reality, and that's not something that an honorable man would do. So don't do it. That's kind of the notes I had on that. So yeah, there's actual reasons why nice guys finish last. Because you can't be trusted. And I highly suggest to look at the Gottman Institute study on relationships. It was married couples, and for the most part, anyway, I think it was like 2,600 of them. They did great work. Even though I was talking shit about the Gottmans and their marriage arrangement and how it appears that the woman is in a stronger position than the man, which I think is a total fail. Still good people, still very wise, still great work that was done, and people like me are grateful that they did that, put that out there. And my relationships have all crumbled and failed miserably, so I'm not in any position to like point fingers and say I'm better than them or anything like that. I'm not saying that. I'm just making observations. I'm heckling from the bleachers. I'm like, bro, can we not have these just like strong women and weak men trying to tell the rest of us how to live our lives? It's ridiculous, dude. Anyway, have a blessed day. All we do is win. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave some comments, tell me if you think I sound ridiculous. If you agree, agree. If you disagree, I'd be happy to joust with you verbally about what your disagreements are. So feel free to let me know. Get at me.